I'd like to bring the meeting to order and ask that roll be called, please.
Blue?
Here by phone.
Disharu?
Here.
Henry?
Here.
Holzhauser? Here. Humbles?
Here.
Wagenbach?
Here.
Wisdom?
Here.
I'd like to ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The board will now move on to the public participation portion of the meeting. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board? If so, please raise your hand. Okay, this concludes the public participation portion of the meeting. The board will now move on to the information items. Mr. Wisdom has a presentation to share on behalf of the pool committee.
Okay, thank you. Brief history of why we're here. Most of us all know it. The pool was built with the original high school 40 plus years ago. At the time, it was probably state of the art, up to date. And both the pool and the facilities, the equipment that service it. As time went on, things were repaired and repaired and repaired. And at some point, some of those repairs fell into disrepair. But swimming is an expensive sport. Costs are high just doing it anyway. Because of the cost and the complexity of some of the repairs, the issues were pushed down the road and pushed down the road and pushed down the road. And now they can no longer be pushed down the road. They have to be dealt with. There are 2 HVAC units up on the roof to make things as simple as possible. The one closest to us brings in fresh air and heats it for the winter. The one on the far side takes out the bad air and pushes it out. The main unit has basically died. The heater has died, and it can't be used. We've kind of fixed up the unit so the heater is disconnected so it brings in fresh air, and the far unit will take out the bad air so we can use it, but it won't heat up during the winter. So if we don't have the thing in place by the school's swim season starting in August, which the odds are pretty clear that we're not, we'll have to use portable heaters somehow. But the point is, we can't go on like this. It's now been to the point where it has to be addressed. And so in our May board meeting, the board appointed a swimming pool committee to start looking into costs of what it would take to address 4 options with respect to the pool. That pool committee is made up of the people that you see here. Damon Hackett is the assistant supervisor, superintendent. Director of operations is Tom Grimm. Troy Hammer is the maintenance technician that does almost all of the work on the pool. Katie Kaslitz's the athletic director. Chad Klein is on the athletic leadership team. A representative of the Dunlap Dolphins is Sandy Salverson, current president. Representative of the swimming parents is Deanna Shiley, who also was a former president of the Dunlap Dolphins. School board members Tim Wagenbach and myself. Since the committee was formed, we started working right away. We've met each week since then and try to make as much progress as we can in a short time. The bottom line is we have something we'd like to present to the board tonight to get some things moving, if it's possible. If it's not possible, then we won't do it, but this is something we'd like to share and see if it is feasible to start addressing some of the issues with respect to the pool. By the way, I met with Deanna and Sandy last year before I ran for the board as a member of the athletic leadership team, which I've been on since the beginning and I'm still on. And frankly, I find them to be extremely reasonable, fair-minded, as I think all of the swimming parents have been for the years that this has been going on. I don't find anybody that's just been rabble-rousing or over the top in the complaints. I think the board, frankly, owes the attention that this takes. We owe it to our swimmers, we owe it to our parents, we owe it to our taxpayers. So our committee is certainly working hard, trying to give this the attention that it deserves as quickly as possible, yet still being within the realm of doing things correctly. Our assignment was to analyze and provide the board with cost estimates for the 4 swimming pool options that we were given. The first being to close the pool, which is being done across country. Information.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Is the camera on?
Did you turn that on?
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Sorry,
Mike. We
Mike.
just want to make sure.
Oh, I lost my train of thought.
We want to make sure we were following
Where was I?
the law.
Deanna provided us with some information from USA Swimming, which is National Swimming Association, and it's a little bit scary. Between the years 2008 and 2013, there were 1,800 swimming pools closed across the country. Why? They're very expensive. Ours is expensive. We haven't been doing the repairs that we could have, should have been doing perhaps, but it's still expensive to operate a pool. Others just can't afford the cost and have closed them down. So that's option number 1. Option number 2 is to form a collaboration with a third party. Option 3 is to construct a new pool, and option 4 is to refurbish the existing pool that we have. So that's what our assignment is, try to come up with estimates of what the cost is for those 4 options. All right, now these are from what we've heard, some of the existing problems with the pool. The old HVAC system, poor air quality, excessive humidity, the real complaints about what it's like to be in there during the swim practices and the meets. Breaks down a lot. It dumps out black stuff into the swimming area and onto the spectator areas. And then the high cost of repairs. Those are the problems with the HVAC system. There's rusting on some of the structural girders that needs to be addressed. The floor surface is basically, it's concrete. It's flat concrete. It doesn't even have a texture to it. And it's slippery when it gets wet. Now, some of these issues, in my mind, are safety issues. These need to be addressed ASAP. That's probably one of them. The leakage on the pool is 200, 300 gallons a week, which, when you pay for that week after week after week, starts adding up into money. Inadequate spectator capacity, dangerous protrusions in the floor. There's some areas where there used to be ladders or used to be a lifeguard station. There's stuff that sticks up out of the floor. It wasn't ground down and made level, so kids are tripping on those. It's a tripping hazard, but also they're injuring themselves on that, even to the point of having to go get stitches. So there again is another safety issue in my mind. Poor floor drainage in the locker rooms. Troy Hammer, the maintenance person, tells us that some areas is actually 2 inches deep in there until he goes in with a squeegee and squeegees it out. The small rusty lockers are, I believe, the original lockers in the locker rooms. They're metal, so in a humid environment like that, they're going to rust, and they have. It's the original filtration system and pump, and that's old. It's working. Troy says it's working very well. That thing just keeps plugging along. It's not the problem. The HVAC is the major problem. Filtration system, he says, is working as well as it has in a long time, but it's old. Peeling paint on the pool and the locker room walls. There's lack of natural light in the pool area. In fact, there's very little natural light except for some skylights from the ceiling. And then the depth and the size of the pool aren't as large as it would be nice for them to be. One end is deeper, but the far end where the turns are made is not that deep. It would be nice if it were deeper for the swimmers. It would be nice if it were wider, but in the configurations, frankly, it can't be. And then there's rust on some of the roof joists. So those are some of the major problems that we've heard about the pool. I'm sure there are more, but those are the major ones, the complaints that we've had about the pool. So moving ahead, we have not had time to analyze all of these options. We don't have final cost numbers, but because we're here tonight to talk about a potential way to move forward on some things, we're going to give some estimates that we do have. While we continue with our work, we propose to continue with our work and come back at some point in the future with more definite numbers. But for what we have right now, the cost of closing the pool, it's not just closing the pool. It would save us money going forward, but you wouldn't just leave that open. We would repurpose it for something. It's about 20,000 square feet. In 2016, the Farnsworth Group did an analysis of the pool, and I don't know if it was them or someone, but we have it in our files, did an estimate of what it would cost to repurpose that area. It was $850,000 at the time, which seems like a lot of money, but frankly it's not. It's 20,000 square feet. A reasonable number for just interior build-outs, $40 a foot. That's $800,000 by itself. That doesn't include the demolition, filling in the pool, soft costs, permitting fees. So those were 2016 numbers, probably $900,000 to $1 million now. So that number is probably real for going forward. Form a collaboration with a third party. There's basically two ways we can do that. We could co-op with another school, which is not likely. Katie's here now. I believe I saw her come in. Hi, Katie. To co-op with somebody else, basically other schools have to approve it. Our swimmers are pretty dominant now. If we co-op with somebody else, there's no way they're going to approve that. If we're beating them now, imagine what it'll be like when we form a co-op with some other school that has another pool. So that's not a real likely possibility. Collaboration with a third party, either a hospital or some other company that can operate a health club, which is basically what this would be. We're a school district. We're not going to operate a health club. And so we would have to find a partner who would help build this, fund this, and operate this. That's something that's going to take a while. We can't sit on our haunches while we're waiting to find out the answers to that. This is something, there are some things that need to be done now, especially the safety items that I pointed out earlier. So don't know what the cost is, don't know what the timing is, don't know who it is, but as I said before, it's our suggestion that the committee keep working to see if there's any feasibility to that. Constructing a new pool, again, using some information that Deanna provided us from USA Swimming, it appears that we could replace that pool that's there now in the same location, but deeper, for around $2 to $3 million. But again, it would probably be in about the same footprint because we don't have room for much else. However, Deanna also tells us that most of the swim meets that we go to, that we participate in, are roughly a similar size. If we build a new pool, we had heard the numbers $9 to $10 million. As part of the presentation from USA Swimming, they showed us a 10-lane pool that's 25 yards long with a separate diving tank in Indiana. Fairly recently, it was $10 million. So we assume that's still a decent number to work with for our purposes at this point. So those are those three options. Fourth option is to refurbish. Tom Grimm, the Director of Operations, has provided budget numbers for some of the work, and some of those are shown here. The new HVAC system, $150,000 plus or minus, might be a little more depending on whether we put it back on the roof, what we have to do to support it, put it out on the ground, and pipe it in from the ground. Still working through those issues, but that's a budget number, plus or minus. But frankly, it's my understanding that the board has already agreed that we're going to move forward with this. We don't really have a choice. If we want to have a swimming program, we're going to have that first HVAC unit replaced. If not, then it's going back to option number one, which is closing the pool. And that's not my understanding what the direction from the prior board was that this board is operating under. A new filtration system and the pumps, $200,000 plus or minus. Number three is a bit of a collage of repairs. Sandblasting those rusty girders and the joists. Painting the pool, you've all seen the pool. The paint job is worn out. Painting the walls in the pools in the area where the rust is. I've overstated our case a little bit. The number did not include painting all of the pool area and the locker rooms, but it does include applying a new non-slip flooring texture on the pool area, caulking the swimming pool at the juncture of the swimming pool tank and the concrete floor. Troy Hammer thinks that's where most of the leakage is coming from. You can reach underneath there, and whatever passes for caulk is not sealing anything. You can poke holes in it with your finger. He says when the pool goes down below that level, it stops, and the leakage stops. So he thinks that's probably the majority of where the dissipation of the water is from that joint that's not properly sealed. So this includes that. And then grinding off those protrusions and items that are sticking up and repairing the floor surface. Tom has a budget number of about $150,000 for that. Tim Wagenbach has dealt with a company out of, it's called Putnam County Painting, and he's done work with them, so he knows them. They provided him with a budget number that I'm going to pass around pretty soon that doesn't include painting the walls and the locker room, but it's less than that. They are prevailing wage, correct. They also do work for Caterpillar, West Point, the federal government. From what we know about them so far, they seem to be quite experienced, been in business for 49 years. Before we would do anything with anybody, we would check references and see their work and make sure. But it's at least somebody who should be giving an opportunity to look at this. Installing the windows in the pool area, bring in some more natural light. Tom's budget number for that is $50,000. One idea that we had, if we're going to refurbish and to provide more spectator seating, there's only one place for it. And I'm going to get to that, but we don't have a budget number for that yet. New lockers, we didn't have that until last night. Katie Caslett has gotten some estimates on new. They're plastic lockers, they're larger, they won't rust, and that cost would be about $40,000. And timing-wise, Katie, how long would it take to get those new lockers?
The things I saw in 6 to 8 weeks.
6 to 8 weeks. Okay. And then adding additional flooring surface in the locker rooms that cause the floors to drain. We haven't had time to look into that yet, so we don't know what those costs are. But those are some of the costs for refurbishing. So a proposal for consideration by the board from the pool committee is this. We need to finalize the research on the appropriate HVAC system so we can get that installed as soon as possible. Again, Dr. Dearman has pointed out, which I agree with, I think Tom agrees with, we're not going to have these in time for the swimming season to get into the winter months. We're probably going to have to be using portable heaters for part of the season. But to finish that as soon as possible, finalize what the best option is, and get that ordered. Those equipments, you don't go in and pick them up off the shelves. They're special order, and they take quite a bit of time to manufacture. So we need some lead time on that. Continue the research on options 2 and 3, which is the collaboration and a new pool. Get better numbers. And then the bid, contract for and perform work in item number 3, which was that collage of items that address a bunch of issues. And then to continue research on those, well, 5 and 7 now, we know what 6 is. Is that something for us to consider? Our proposal is the Dunlap Dolphins swim in the summer, the high school teams don't. The Dolphins thought that the pool was going to be down for the whole summer, and so they contracted with Richwoods to swim over there, to practice over there. So they're not swimming here. So despite the fact we can bring in fresh air, we can push it out the far side, we're not doing it because nobody's swimming in there. That means there's a short window of opportunity to see if we can get things done this summer. If so, great. I think a lot of us are all in favor of that. If it can't be done, then the next window would be at the end of the boys' swimming season, at the end of March and beginning of April. So we'd like to talk about the idea of tackling some of these things this summer, besides finalizing the research on the HVAC. We know that one is going to be addressed. Item 3 is that catch-all. If we can do those things, these are the items on that list of problems and complaints that it addresses. The rusting of the structural girders, the slippery floor surface, the leaking of the pool, we believe, those protrusions from the floor surface, the peeling paint at least around the rusty areas in the pool, not necessarily the locker room right now. We wouldn't want to paint that, then bring in the locker rooms and have them not fit our prior painting. And the rust on the roof joists. All three of those, or all of those would be addressed with item number 3. This is one item, as I mentioned before, there's only one place we can expand that existing building to have more spectator space. Here's the pool, here's the diving area. Right here is where the existing bleachers are. There's 2 sections of bleachers there. And people are having to come out. Every race, people leave. The new racer parents come in. Their race is done, they leave. The next come in. This area right here, if you look at it, there's a different texture of the wall, basically paneling. Tim was here when that used to be garage doors. There used to be patios out here, and they'd open those garage doors in the summer when it got so hot. That's the wall now. Those could be punched out. Arguably, we could build a building around and put 3 new sections of bleachers here, which is more than double, 150% of what we have right now. The issue is how to get people in. The judges sit here, there's not a lot of room over there. May have to have people enter here. This is spectator seating, this is swimmer seating, something to that effect. But it's something that our committee will continue to look at if that's the direction that the board wants to go. Wants us to be looking at. This is the area that Tom Graham had proposed for windows in this same wall. It's the one that makes sense because it's west. South and west is where we get the most light. If we put this, we can still do that. If we add this component of a building here to get more spectator area, if we put the windows out here, they'll be behind those bleachers. We can do that, but it probably wouldn't provide tons of light. The idea is perhaps we put them in the north wall. That doesn't provide as much light, but it depends on the size of the windows. So that's a suggestion. If we can do those things, if the board decides that's what it wants to do, if that's the direction, then in the green are the items that would be addressed by that. And that's the inadequate spectator capacity. It still wouldn't be as large as any of us would like, but it's probably as large as you can possibly do in that area. And then the lack of natural light in there. So that would address as much as possible those. Proposals for the locker rooms. If we can apply new servants that would last and not chip away the specific floor areas that hold water, we can get those to drain. And then install new non-metal lockers in there to replace those rusty metal ones. This is all cumulative. The 2 items that would address would be the purple ones, the poor floor drainage in the locker rooms and the small rusty lockers in the locker rooms. But what it doesn't address is the age and filtration pumping system and the depth and the size of the pool, not being as large as we'd like it to be. Again, Troy says that filtration system is working extremely well, probably as well as it's been working since he's been here. The worry that we have, and Tom has pointed this out, and he is correct, we are, use the term grandfathered, some of the things that we have in our swimming pool area. If we cross a line in construction, the grandfathering goes away. We have to start addressing all of these things. One of those is the piping underneath the concrete floor. It's different piping now, different material is required. That's a major expense item. There will be other major expense items if we cross a line. It could be that building the spectator area might cross that line. We don't know yet because we haven't talked to the county about it yet because we don't have direction from the board. But it's fairly clear that if we replace that filtration system at this point, we probably get into losing our grandfathering and having to fix or change all of those things. So there's a dangerous line for us to cross at some point. So it's our proposal that we try to find out if we can do some of these address some of these repairs now. And that's those item 3, those issues in item 3 that we talked about before. Passing out to the board the quote from Putnam County Painting that Tim knows and was able to procure this for addressing that, and it's a pretty reasonable cost. They came and addressed our committee last night, and they provided some materials that they proposed for putting on the floor this non-slick surface, and I'm going to pass these around too. Caius, I'm going to ask you to speak up about this.
The floor system that we have in place.
Can you really speak up or use
Maybe
the
in the
microphone?
microphone.
Yeah,
Do you want to sort of-
thank you.
Sorry, Cheryl.
It might not- it might just stay.
Floor system we have there.
Bring it up to you.
The floor system.
Is it on?
Probably not.
You have to push the button.
How about now? Okay. So the floor system that you're looking at in that proposal is a epoxy broadcast system. I've used them before in pool locker rooms. Basically, it's a relatively thick layer of epoxy and sand, up to an 1/8 of an inch thick, and then a sort of top coat of epoxy and colored sand is then broadcast into that epoxy till refusal, and then the excess is brushed away. You can use it to form cove bases around the edges. It definitely provides the slip resistance that's appropriate in a pool area. It does require quite a lot of workmanship to get right. You can end up with slick areas or rough areas, and you have to monitor that and look at it carefully once the work is done. But the slip resistance is a critical factor, and by code that's a wet, bare skin on surface coefficient of friction, and it will definitely meet that. I think it has to be above 0.6 or something. But I know from myself that I have sort of poured buckets of water on those new floors, taken off my shoes and socks on site to be sure that it's really, it's grippy enough, but it's not so much that it's going to rip your feet up. There's a balance.
I have a question. We utilized this in the cafeteria where I worked. It was difficult to clean because of the cooking, and for cleaning it, what type of apparatus? Is it like power washing, or do
Yeah,
they
I think it needs power washing. I certainly wouldn't recommend doing a bright white floor in this. I mean, it does tend to look grubby after a while,
Right.
but I think if it's in a nice gray concrete color,
Sure.
I think it's appropriate. I don't think it's a health risk or anything.
Right,
I think it's just it discolors.
Thank you.
So do you have a disadvantage of using this floor? I mean, you just said it's put on right and it's okay if it's done right.
I think it's very important that you find an installer who is experienced, that the manufacturer comes out and gives them the training that they need if they're not.
Okay.
I mean, I'd like to see some previous installations that installer has done.
Yeah, we're gonna look at them.
And then I don't have, I've specified it myself, I don't have any hesitation recommending the
But a
system.
floor like this properly done is
Absolutely
great.
appropriate. And pools are very, very corrosive. And they're hard on any kind of material, particularly hard on thin coating. And this I've seen hold up for years.
Which one? This one?
Any other questions for Caius before I continue? Okay. Well, I took a moment, again, the pool committee's desire was, if possible, at a minimum to address the items that, if nobody else does, I personally consider to be safety issues, that slippery floor and then those protrusions sticking up. Those are incorporated within that number 3. If nothing else, if we could do those before the pool season starts, we'd be making progress. if we could do all three of those, we'd be making a lot of progress, including emptying the pool, caulking around. You have to empty the pool to do the caulking and to paint it, so whenever you decide to do one, you do the other. Empty the pool, paint it so that it looks nice again instead of shabby, and do that caulking. I've run some timelines. Today's the 12th. We have to have bid specifications because we have to go out to bid for this work. I had in my notes here, which happily for me, Kaya says is very generous. I had to prepare bid specs. It would be 16 days, which seemed a long time for painting and caulking. Caius agrees that he could do that in less time, a week. Well, I had 16 days, which would have, my old timeline was taking from June 13 to June 28. Go out for 10 days to bids, which we're required to do.
Wait a minute, can I ask you a question? Are we required to bid a repair?
Yes,
At what dollar number?
25,000 is the cutoff.
And is maintenance, safety, all those are required at that same 25,000?
Yep.
So if there's two different parts to this, two $10,000 parts,
It's project cost. If the project cost is over 25,000, it has to go out to bid.
per this contractor? Okay, thanks.
Staying on the old schedule, 10 days of bidding would go from June 29 to July 8. I have a work period in here of 4 weeks from July 9 to August 7. Putnam County Painting says they could do that job in 2 to 3 weeks.
No, he said a little more than that, didn't he?
What?
He said 2 to 3 on the painting, and then he wanted 2 to 3 more for,
No.
really? Okay.
No, it's my understanding
Okay.
that he would do them both at the same time. The painting and the floor service would be done simultaneously. I asked him that question
Okay.
twice. If we'd have to clarify, but
That's fine.
if he needs 6 weeks, we don't have time for it. So that's one question. But again, using the old schedule, that would take us to August 7, and the girls' swim team starts August 12. So aggressive, extremely aggressive, possible. I'm leaving that. This is coming from the pool committee for the board's consideration. The other alternative is to don't do this during the summer and wait until after the swimming season, get all this stuff in line, get it ready, and start it at the end of the season, at the end of March and on into April.
So I have a question then. The 25,000, is that a school policy or a state law?
That's law.
State law.
In 10 days is the law
That's law.
on bidding for,
Has to be published in a paper of general circulation. Bidders have to be given a minimum of 3 days' notice. It's very specific in the requirements.
And do we have to, I know we have to take the lowest bid, but do we also have to take the lowest bid if that might take longer, if we have a time sensitivity?
It's the lowest responsible bid.
Okay, so can we put on our specifications that it has to be done in a certain amount of time?
We can.
And there can be penalties for not getting it done with a certain amount of time too, so.
Well, I think if we have that caveat in there and we can put the specifications, I mean, my preference would be to do it earlier.
It may cost you a little bit more money. Sometimes the bid's higher. They have a timeline. But I think the board, we called for this meeting. I mean, nobody wants to have extra board meetings, but we called for this meeting because we want it understood that the pool is a priority. We need to have these repairs done with expediency if possible. And if we can get it done, I think the majority of us would like to see something go forward, especially something that's protruding that could be ground off with, those are items that need to be addressed. And I'm not sure that any of us feel that we want a pool that's unsafe. But my opinion is that I think everybody on this board wants to see if we can get those things done and done quickly. I mean, we'll have to think about it, discuss it, and of course vote on it next month. But next week at this month's regular board meeting. But if there's nothing more, do you have other things to present? or should we go around and discuss at this point?
No, I would like to, Deanna Shively had some comments she'd like to make, and I'd like to, if it's all right, I'd like to
Sure.
have, as a
she's
member
on
of the pool committee.
Yes, absolutely, sure.
Deanna?
Sure. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Do you want her to go up to the mic? So
Yeah.
It might
Deanna,
be
if you
helpful, would you
would,
mind?
Thanks, Deanna.
She's part of the pool
She's
committee,
part of the
so I
pool
think it'll be
committee.
okay.
Part of the thing that we have a lot of access to is USA Swimming, which is our national governing body for our club team, for the Dunlap Dolphins. They represent around 400,000 members. That does not include YMCA swimmers or high school swimmers that may not be clubs, so obviously numbers are larger than that. But as Mike shared earlier, when we look at the numbers of decreasing pools being available, USA Swimming said they needed to do something about that. So they started an entire arm of their kind of facilities development, is what they call it. And some of the things that they did in their research is they decided we need to reach out and provide assistance, provide information, and some of that information I did share with Mike and share with you. Another thing is as you guys are considering some of the things, is this worth doing? Is it really going to be helpful? In their research, the first impressions when people walk into a facility, the research they've done, there's three things. The first thing people notice is aesthetics, safety, and then functionality. With some of the considerations that have been put forth for you to look at, I feel that some of them hit all three. So, when we represent the swimming community, those are things that you look for. With the aesthetics, obviously the look of the type of new flooring and paint, that would get that. Safety is huge. Having a properly functioning HVAC system, and also getting rid of all the tripping hazards and things like that, that's key, I would say, in the facility. And functionality that would tie in with that as well, so that we would not have pool time being down for either the high school teams or the club teams. So those are the things that they came with their research, and I just wanted to share that with you as you guys consider what you're looking at.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your time on the committee. I think we should just go around, if anyone has any questions, and perhaps we could, on the board, if anyone has any questions that the committee
This is
chair could
information.
answer.
We vote.
Well, do you want me to pick on you, or do you want me to
Yeah,
start over here?
One
Ms.
of my
Henry.
questions in the proposal, it said 2 to 3 million for a pool in the same location. Does that include everything under roof, or is that just the pool? Like, does that include the lockers and the boiler?
Honestly, Ann, we haven't gotten that far into it.
Okay.
We don't know. We think it would include the filtration system of the pumps and the pool itself.
Where'd that come from? That number come from?
It came from the material that Deanna sent us.
Okay.
Do you know, Deanna?
I don't have details on that. It's not a building structure.
So it doesn't include the skid floor, it doesn't include the new lockers, it's just the pool itself?
Possibly the system.
The system of and the pool, okay, thank you.
My other question is the pumps. I think that's the one.
Okay, and I'm having trouble hearing you, so
Oh.
I'm betting they are too.
So my other, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
My other question is like the pump and the filtration, that's the one thing that would not be addressed, is that correct with this? How much longer do you think that's going to last? Do you,
Don't know. It could be a short time, it could be a long time. According to Troy, he doesn't have a crystal ball, but
The pump has been changed before.
oh, it has?
It's not the original pump. I'm sure of that. And so you're talking about the filter tanks. If one rusts out, can they use one less tank? I don't know.
We have put a lot of time, attention, and money into the filtration system over the last 3 years. And Troy is right, it is running better than it has in a number of years. Everything, we do pay quite a bit of attention to it, and we address any small issues that come up with it immediately, so that very possible. Can I say that for a fact or for sure? I can't say that for a fact. I can tell you that we pay very close attention to that system.
And if that were to go down, would that be an issue with the codes? Like you say, you have grandfathered codes. So if something were to go wrong there, would there be an issue with the coding? If you have to fix it or change it?
I don't think they know that yet. I'm going to say that because I looked it up and I can't see where it says it. It talks about this pool itself and you can change that out if it's an exchange. You what?
He can answer it.
I'm on the board of my MCA. We've done a lot of work with the pool there in town. Now, we recently replaced the entire mechanical system without triggering IUKH compliance for some of the baby pool and things like that. So there are, I mean, basically, you're replacing the kind. So you're replacing the system, it's still kind of the same as maintenance. So it doesn't necessarily trigger full compliance.
Does not.
It does not. Okay.
So what kind of a cost is to replace an HVAC system?
No,
This
the
is-
No, this is the
filtration.
filtration.
Okay, the filtration, so the system that we're talking about, the filtration, yeah, okay. So what would it cost to replace that type of a system?
Tom's budget, it's up there, 200,000.
I've currently talked with a company that does that type of work with our district already. They've given us a replacement cost of a filtration system along with a new chemical delivery
200.
system of 200.
250, okay, I thought I saw that. So that would be the only additional cost then if something were to go wrong.
I'm just kind of adding those all up.
Right.
Like if you do a lot of fixes, what's the total fixed cost versus a new pool?
Right.
2 to 3 million. That was sort of my overall question.
So how do you feel about these temporary safety? Should we do it now? Are you supportive of that? I mean, I guess that's what we're going around the table. Is that what we're
Right,
doing?
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Do you have any other questions that you want to ask at this time?
No, but I mean, if you fix these things now, then you're going into the realm of not a new pool, but to rehab. That's sort of the choice that's being made, correct?
Correct.
I guess I'll step in. I'm not ruling out just by doing these. To me, the HVAC's got to be done.
Right.
Okay? I don't, in my mind, there's no choice but to tackle these safety issues, period. And so those things, and you can't just say, well, we'll just let them go while we're studying a new pool or a collaboration. I don't think we get any more grace period. I think we need to deal with those, period. So I think we continue to look at a collaboration. If some organization steps up and says, we'd love to form a collaboration with you and do a whole new health facility with the pool and weightlifting and training and all of that, I don't think we will have wasted money if we're doing safety things and maybe some aesthetics like Deanna talked about. So I had that same thought, Ann, but again, as part of the proposal that we consider moving ahead with these while the committee continues doing its work. But we're at the board's disposal. We'll do whatever you tell us to do.
And so it kind of says, though, if we go this route, we're not going to do a new pool. So it would kind of, your options then would be to rehab or to do some sort of co-op. So it kind of takes the option 3 out of a new pool or whatever option that was.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think what Mike is saying is our kids are going to have to use that pool irregardless of what decision is made because of the timelines. We're not going to have a new pool in place by August 12th if that's the direction.
Okay.
They're still doing their research and they're still busy, but the bottom line is come August 12th, our kids are going to need to swim in that pool. And there are some inherent safety issues that have been discovered by the committee that he would like cleaned up before our kids go back into that pool. And we have a brief window now that the Dolphins are out at Rich Woods where we can actually get some of this done because they're not there.
Which is why.
And I'm not trying to speak for you, Mike,
No,
that's my
you
interpretation.
said it better than I could have. Thank you.
And that's why we wanted to have the meeting this week, so we could possibly get some of these things going if we could approve them next week.
And I'm supportive of all of those changes as well.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any other questions?
I don't.
Okay. Mr. Wagenbaum?
I would just say that the pool guys that came out said this pool is pretty decent shape. He didn't say it was junked ready to throw away. So, I mean, if you can get another, let's say 5 or 10 years out of it. So even if you added up his filtration system, if it would cost $200,000, and the HVAC of $200,000, and redoing this floor $75,000, you're $475,000,
Versus 2, 3.
right? And that, if that gets you another, that ought to get you at least 5 years, I would think.
And then the lockers, but that wasn't a huge.
Yeah, right.
Right.
No, we didn't
But-
have lockers.
But the 2 to 3 million, we think, does not include the lockers, the surface,
Correct.
you know. that
And we
stuff.
have, when Mr. Zaun was on the board, he did approach hospital organization about a possible co-op, and it just fell through. They weren't at this time interested or ready to make that investment as well. So we will continue to look for those options if possible. But something needs to be done now. Even if we decided to build a new pool, as Dr. Dearman said, it's going to take more than a year to get that process underway. So definitely have to address the safety issues. And I mean, just the aesthetics when you walk in and see the pool, the color of the pool, you know, if that could be painted, it would look so much more attractive when you come in. That's just my opinion. Did you have anything, Mrs. Holthausen?
Yes, and first of all, I'd like to thank the committee and Mike for reaching out to me. I know I talked to you on Saturday, but with the pool here, and I think I'm going to repeat basically everything I said to you, but you know, we don't have a pool that's working. We need an emergency corrective action in ECA, and that's what you've brought to us. And absolutely anything that's safety related in the pool absolutely needs to be fixed. And moving forward, if anything in any facility is a safety issue, that's top priority. I think you know that. Mr. Grimm there as well. We need to get anything that's safety related fixed. Now that going to that question too, I think we need to move forward and get those items corrected and continue the research of what you're doing on the new pool. One item that I did have a question on, and well, there's several. Are there any environmental concerns when we're looking at the paint in there? If there's peeling paint, anything like that? Do you know if there's any environmental concerns?
At this time, no.
Okay, but when they take a look at that, we'll know. Also, and you answered that question too, and when you said the filtration system, maybe we can get 1 to 2 years out of it. Like, what is your confidence level that by doing these, that we'll have no downtime, so to speak, in the pool will not have any repairs that are needed, that's going to close this down? We just don't know, right? It's the crystal ball out there, right?
I would like to say that we have some investigation into this rather than wait until it's broke, like we did the HVAC. Let's know
Absolutely. I
today what it
completely
takes
agree
for a
with that.
filtration.
I think the thing that causes the most problems or the breakdowns, correct me if I'm wrong, but is the HVAC system, not so much filtration.
Well,
system.
it could go bad, though.
But,
You know
but
it's going to
I
someday.
agree with you. I think, you know, this is at least doing these things gives us time to work on these others, but do we want to hold off on these while we're considering the others?
Absolutely not. We need to have a pool ready for the swimmers in August if we can, when that happens. You know, a big concern anytime you're working with and doing these type, whether it be rehab, and I don't know that that's what we're doing, we're just getting the pool where we're at, but anytime you open a wall, you don't know what's behind it, right? So we need some contingency dollars in there too when we do this piece here, and I don't know if the numbers you got, and I know they're just estimates, we'll find more, but just to keep that in mind, absolutely for this to move as quickly as we can to get these swimmers in the pool.
Thank you very much.
I did have an
Cheryl.
additional question.
Mrs.
Don't
Bluth
forget
is on the phone. Do you have anything that you'd like to ask Mrs. Bluth, or any questions for Mike?
No, and unfortunately, I didn't hear a lot of the discussion, but I didn't want to interrupt, you know, just because of the sound issue. But I did just want to also say what a lot of the board members have said, that I really appreciate the committee's work, analyzing all the options quickly. And I know it's an initial assessment because there's a lot of numbers out there that are unknown. But you guys moved quickly and you recommended short-term solutions that address the repairs that are needed to get the pool up and running by August for the girls' high school swim season, which is really a critical factor, and you guys did that quite well, and also addressing the safety issues. And if we can get those two things going, we need to make the fixes that are needed now, while avoiding expenditures that may be wasted until we make the final the final solution. So I think we're doing the best short-term fix in the most prudent, fiscal way. And I think you guys did a great job and really appreciate your work.
Thank you, thank you.
I have
One other
thing
question
also.
I had too. Go ahead, Teresa.
As far as safety goes, the floor drains in the locker rooms where there's a lot of water on the floor, do we want to take a look at that? Has anyone ever slipped in there? Is that a safety issue?
And I don't know anyone has slipped and fallen.
People are shaking their heads, yeah.
We're seeing some yeses back there. We're seeing some yeses back
If that's,
there.
I would highly recommend putting that in this as well.
I think we need to start looking at that, but I don't know what those answers, our committee does not know what those answers are
Okay.
yet, Teresa.
I just want to make sure if it's a
Explore,
safety
but
issue,
Yeah, we can
that
continue to explore those other items, yes.
it would be high priority for me if it's a safety issue.
And then separate from the issue we're addressing today, one of the things I'd like to know is it possible to purchase that filtration system and have it waiting? Is it one of those systems where they have to build it separately and takes a lot of time? And so would it be better to purchase it, have it waiting, and then when it breaks down, be ready to just pop it in, or does it not work like that?
Can I give you my recommendation? If that's the decision, if that's the board, if that's the direction they decide to go, I think you determine when there's going to be a downtime.
Oh, okay. Mhm. And just do it.
And then you order it ahead of time and have it there ready to go.
Okay.
Possibly in March when they're not, yes.
Yeah.
Again, it depends on what the board's final direction is, but if it is to refurbish and then there's probably a way to avoid, unless it dies
Before then.
before that time,
Okay.
my suggestion.
Do we need to tell you which direction we're going, 1, 2,
Not
3, or 4
tonight.
tonight? Not
Not
tonight?
tonight. Well, tonight's the information item, and then we'll make a vote on it at the next meeting.
And
Next
the vote
week,
on
which
at
is-
the next meeting is just about these interim
Correct.
painting, grinding down, non-slip.
But we have to have the information item one meeting.
Not the HVAC.
And then make a decision
We've
on,
already-
which is why we had this special meeting, so that we could follow the proper procedures.
So it basically tells us we're doing number 3, if we, or the number refurbish, if we keep doing these things.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Okay, are there any more questions from the board at this time? That concludes the information items. Could I have a motion, please, to adjourn the closed session, to adjourn the closed session?
A motion to adjourn closed session.
For the following.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I move to adjourn to closed session for the following purposes as stated in the Open Meetings Act, collective negotiating
Is
matters.
there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Wisdom. Any discussion?
Yeah, wait, did you have personnel on there?
No.
Do we
Not
want it on
tonight,
there?
it'll be in next week.
Next week.
Oh, shucks.
Okay. Seconded by Mr. Wisdom. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Fisherman,
Aye.
Wisdom,
Aye.
Blue,
Blue?
Cheryl, are you there? Thank you.
Henry. Aye. Olzenhauser. Humbles.
Aye.
Wagenbach.
Motion carried.
Aye.
Motion carried. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting this
I
evening?
move to adjourn.
Second?
Any discussion? Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay.